Welcome. I'm showing you let's call it diplomacy window. This isn't the best one of these that I've ever found, but the best one was shut down fairly recently after its initial upload. This one has been fairly good and consistent. It is a little, I might use the word fearful, but it is okay. So we've been debating what to do with the Madagascar model, and it seems going until we do the tax reform, because people have been grumbling a lot about the taxes. And we were having a long debate on what to do. And there was a candidate that we were thinking about, but it wasn't the one we actually chose. The one we were thinking about was reducing taxation by reducing functions and looking at the functions we as a nation kind of don't need. Senesaqua volcano insurance. By the way, this is much less funny after the Tonga explosion. And we were debating that one, but I didn't like doing it because it's not my thing to cut from these services. You need another boss for that. And we actually found that if we have a high interest rate and have a currency reserve exchange, meaning money in the bank, we can actually, at an interest rate of 7%, which is what we're getting as a nation, make a lot of money off of it. So we were thinking about what taxes we'd like to have if we actually had only the taxes that we want, like only those. And we decided that a value-added tax could be 25%. So we're looking at holding a currency reserve exchange extra until we can reduce value-added tax to 25%. But we have a challenge of doing in 2 months, and we managed to get lucky, and 2.5 months is what we actually got. But we'll go with 2 months with a 2.5 month extension total from current day's real date to what we can propose as a tax plan, because the people are actually kind of obviously revolting against the high taxes. And we didn't have a plan for that without the currency reserve exchange, which is a recent implementation in my controlling interface. So we are looking at that because that is a pretty miraculous solution. So here's the map. You can see the guys talking to each other. And, we're doing this. This is horrendously laggy, by the way.
The spread of the epidemic seems to have
Plague. Let's see how much international interest in our space program actually exists. Getting one of our guys to live on the space station. Hungary is proposing 30 million. We will accept it. Estimated risk of 36% at current budget. We need more partners. We will see again in 3 weeks. weeks. I'm paying 95% and they are paying 2%. Gonna see what happens when I raise the total budget to 300 million if the auxiliary partners don't contribute enough to take it to say 99% paid and like 1% risk of failure. It's not going to be 1% risk of failure at 99% paid because the budget is way too little. We have access to all the technologies, some of them from the partner Russia. We do, however, have most of them domestically. By the launch date, we should have most all of them domestically. We have quite a lot of technology, but that's because we tend to steal a lot of technology. These this game has a very difficult scientific cooperation system where you have to click through 1,000 menus. It produces technology through cooperation, but the spying interface is like 3 clicks, and I'd prefer not to sink myself into the interface of this game in a massive way. That's why I'm not doing any diplomacy or domestic meetings, for example, because I just come on, man, come on. I know I would do it for real if I was actually the guy, but in a simulation, just so yeah. This I'm particularly proud of. Maybe the one site we have of each will eventually become beneficial with an advance in technology, but for now we have zero production of fuel and natural gas. Considering that we actually have those sites and according to logic they should produce something that is peculiar. natural gas. This is being way too laggy. Right. It starts to slow down when it's zoomed down, I recall. Still pretty slow. No, it's at least manageable.
Here is our growth forecast for
That's
the end of the
the
year.
problem with simulators like these when you have a trillion variants and you start them all at equal numbers and you allow them to be zoomed into like 1,000 thousands of their actual number and everybody starts to randomly move and their numbers end up being 10 digits long instead of one digit. Then it has to do math in units that may be a 25th to a thousand of one unit in accuracy. Because a lot of that data would get lost if there was a reduction in accuracy, but you can make it a lot more efficient. My God, this is gonna slowly crawl.
Our scientific system. Our network has been partially disbanded. The agents were captured or killed during the. Our network has been partially.
Even if we will never take away the trauma, compensating the victims of the disaster will allow them to get on top of things, at least financially. So what?
Our scientific cell in.
I'm getting a distinct signal to ease up on some of these things. So That's not a law. Okay. Just it again. Probably served as an insane asylum at some point. Ugh. I have no idea why it's saying twice.
Our task force had
academics.
Our scientific
Military technology I won't give out for free. If it's stuff that can be reasonably argued to better the life of your people, if it's just information given out for free, then yes, I will give it out for free. That's why in my opinion, am only asking for technologies you want the public to have access to without much hassle, and that's the blue technologies. That seems to be what the world has in terms of things. A nuclear bomb is a military technology, but fusion power plant is not, nor is advanced nuclear fission power plant. Long it's a power plant. There are some steps that are hard to describe between having fuel grade uranium and a bunch of explosives to having an actual nuclear bomb. What you have to do in terms of high energy physics to that particular material for it to explode is not an easy task in terms of, let's say, pre-explosion radiation signature. Now, going to the black market after the collapse of the Soviet Union, which is why I think it may actually indeed be the worst thing that happened to the West in terms of what could have been the outcome of that. And going to the black market after the collapse of the Soviet Union and buying a nuclear weapon is a very discreet and very low energy signature act in comparison to actually developing a nuclear bomb. Because once you put highly enriched uranium in the quantity required for it to go boom, and in the quality for it to go boom, and you have some guy with a satellite in orbit, you have a very clearly visible thing.
The rioters.
It's not the same as having 1,000 centrifuges and enriching it to a fuel grade over the course of a decade. It's not the same. If you manage to do that and build all this stuff and do it by hand and you have a state infrastructure, you may be entitled to do it, but I'm still a little cautious about it. In my opinion, there is a gentleman's club of those who have nuclear weapons that is keen to keep it a gentleman's club. So North Korea has been accepted on the grounds of it being really funny, but Iran, if it were, for example, to actually build a nuclear weapons program, it would have to have a certain degree of gentlemanliness about itself. However, I will say, based on the diplomacy map that you saw earlier, that Iran does indeed possess the level of gentlemanly quality. However, their civilian sector power production is insufficient to maintain the force required by a nuclear weapon. So I would not be worried. There may be the capability with an inordinate amount of effort to build several, but in terms of how much damage it could do if they hired paramilitaries to actually go on bikes across the border to attack the enemy, it is minuscule.
The current
And the cost it would take for Israel to build countermeasures designed around a several atomic Iran is very low in comparison to the cost to Iran just in building and maintaining said bomb. Because said bomb's existence denotes a certain level of activity in the civilian market which is harmful by just having it. There is a rather powerful anti-nuclear lobby in the West. So if Iran does become nuclear, said lobby will actually attack Iran. Like they have attacked every single nuclear power thus far, and
The rioters have taken
Kim Jong something is a very clear example of what actually transpires to you on a personal level when that lobby attacks you. And I'm not talking about the US government because they're also being attacked by said lobby. So building
infiltrated it.
the capability to produce, say, 30% of your nation's power by uranium and domestically enriching it and disposing of the waste without going nuclear in terms of weapons and maintaining said power capability and then continuing to research will, in the course of 15, 20 years, produce the capability to produce a nuclear weapon in a matter of weeks at any point, regardless of how much infrastructure damage the society takes. But it will not be a policy of building nukes, such is the case, for example, in Finland. We do not have a nuclear weapon, but because we have a large uranium enrichment facility for our civilian sector, combined with a civilian research capability, we have a large amount of uranium stockpiles spread throughout the country in civilian sites, which in the case of war can be confiscated and very quickly enriched into a weapon. That is our standing policy. That is my recommendation for Iran with regards to its nuclear safety. And to anyone procuring nuclear weapons through the black market, you have to understand that there is only one safe way to use it, and that is in counter-invasion against a specified beachhead that the enemy takes.
the rioters have
And in most cities' cases, such a beachhead is the main port. So, you know. In the case of, say, France or the Germans, if they'd managed to sneak a nuclear tactical device onto the beach of Normandy, it might have had an effect if it was placed at a very good time. But if it was after the US and West breakout from Normandy, no amount of nuclear weapons would have ended it. And hitting the beaches of Normandy with a nuclear weapon would be rather difficult. Can be done, but it would be rather difficult. That is basically its only use. You can theoretically use it strapped on a warhead, but mad. The only use that wouldn't result in mad is getting it just to stop a beachhead or very, very good bottleneck. Once the battle spreads out into a wide front, nuclear weapons do no good to you. It has to be a very specific beachhead or bottleneck. And then you have to have like a Fulda Gap like stated situation that once the enemy reaches a certain point, you'll use them. You'll basically say that they can, therefore the civilians can get a certain degree of land in the opposite area, but not much. And you also make the stated truth that when they do actually make a move for that land, you will also make a move for their middle land. But otherwise you won't. In Madagascar's case, say Mozambique started landing in a beach near this little Mahajanga coastline city in the north. And I would use nuclear weapons against them. I would then proceed to, for example, make a commando landing in one of these southern cities, or I guess the capital is in the south, one of these northern cities. Otherwise, there would be no like cross activity. I want to build just enough to make like a determined resistance type scenario, in my opinion, or in the view of Madagascar in this case. Some kind of coastline African or colonial situation is most likely. For a colonial situation, we have to keep enough to survive in their worst projected wars in an independent way. And I'm looking at the Second World War numbers. You're looking at way less in your wars. Modern wars in manpower numbers are nothing compared to the Second World War. It's weird. People are not as interested in war anymore, which is very good. They get their things out in computer games. So I want to have just enough to survive, which in my opinion means about 4 divisions, which is about what we have in career soldiers. The Ministry of Defense complained a long time that we had insufficient soldiers, so now we have sufficient soldiers. Still looking at this, we're pretty low. We're 32,000. Doesn't 32,000? Okay, that's weird. It's probably not counting some category doing some academic work or something. We have enough of most things. I prefer to buy like one more frigate and perhaps one submarine, and then perhaps a little bit more of like tanks or something. When I'm watching this combatant, and perhaps a little bit more of tanks, and definitely a lot more anti-missiles. A lot more. Every time I play any kind of squad game simulator, I'm noticing how fucking useful missiles are. They're incredibly useful. Not surprised that the Afghani Mujahideen during the Soviet invasion went from 6 or 5 guy teams with 4 rifle and 1 rocket to the end of the war to having 4 rockets and 1 rifle. Not surprised. Based on how missiles actually do so, I'm gonna need to increase the number of missiles a lot. We have 1 satellite, but it's not a spy satellite. These are ludicrously expensive. You wanna see? 1.5 trillion. That's your satellite right there. I'm gonna go on a limb here and get you guys some more missiles. Still pretty expensive, but I'll allow it. And no, I won't bring in the soldiers. Let's look at the place. Okay, you guys need police reinforcements. One ton Raibo. x of surplus. That's quite a lot. That's enough. Very content with this number. But you know what I'm actually more content with? This number. We're almost starting to deforest. Not quite, but almost. There's like 20 countries between us and deforestation. Is there any deforestation? Yes, there is. Afforestation. China, Russia, United States, Vietnam, Japan, Spain, France. You can see why France and Spain are old empires. We no need to use forests, thank you. Good day. Let it grow. We also have live wolves. Yeah. And mythos about large wolves. And some more large wolves. It's a lot of the old forest. Everything is well built but old. You know, that thing. We used to be an empire. Now we're just relaxing. We don't want to be an empire again. Don't force us to be empire. Mulla on semmoinen suunnitelma, mitä Euroopan unioni pitäisi tehdä. Tehdään sillä lailla, että jokainen semmoinen sopimus on vapaaehtoinen, ei sitova. Ja sä voit aina laittaa sen milloin tahansa päälle tai pois päältä, esimerkiksi neuvotteluaikana demonstraatiotarkoituksena. Sitten on sillä lailla, että Euroopan vapaakauppa kyllä ei, Euroopan yhteinen budjetti kyllä ei, Euroopan ulkopoliittinen yhteisyys kyllä ei. Ja sitten sä voit valita sieltä, että mitä sä laitat päälle ja mitä sä laitat pois päältä. Silloin se pitää tehdä. Sitten jos tekee sillain, niin sinne tulee välittömästi kaikki tuotteet semmoisella, että ne ottaa esimerkiksi euron käyttämisen oman valuutan kanssa jossain pankkikäyttöyhteyksissä kaupassa. Sillain, että mitä se nyt sattuu tekemään. Sieltä voi sieltä täältä ottaa jotain niitä. Okay.
We have subdued the rebel movement.
Our scientific cell in.
There's no choice in terms of simulation except to demand that I also build my own launch pad before I declare myself a space nation, despite living under a space station for a while. There's no choice. Looking at those budget numbers and what we're actually talking about in terms of popular demands.
Everything has been implemented. We could greatly.
Our scientific cell infiltrated an important.
Your country's elevated.
Your commitment.
My fellow countrymen and women, on this solemn day, I want to express my pride and affection. Today, while celebrating the history and genius of our beautiful country, I wish to remember what unites us rather than what divides us in order to look into the future with confidence.
Seems like this game might actually crash, in which case it will be unconclusive. Then we'll have to wait for another patch because I'm not then taking the risk of running this again or another version of the game. Then it will be different country and another version of the world. So it's 900 according to this, and 1.7 trillion according to this. So we'll actually go with highest current rate and whole money on that one. Yes.
Our network has been funeral.
here is our growth forecast for the end.
Usually that drops the deficit a little bit. Slightly more than that. That is very close to what we're aiming for with this economic growth, but slightly more than that. We're expanding at 3% and so is the world. So GDP in terms of GDP is actually going down. But as long as our trade balance continues to improve, there's no problem. We're gonna have to start reducing taxes pretty soon. It's eating all the growth. As soon as we've paid China's and probably India's as well, then we'll probably reduce taxes a little bit. We'll also pay Switzerland before we reduce taxes. Japan is at an acceptable rate, so is Brazil. Germany we may never pay, just to hold some market debt. But most of these we will pay. We will pay the interest of all of these. Just to hold some market leverage. Fine, if you're being mean to us, we'll just pay off all our debt and be done with it. We'll no longer get interest. I have a very interesting game in XCOM that I'm like 99.95% sure that I'm gonna lose. I'm playing with the long war mod, and this is exactly what XCOM should have been like originally. It is a fucking masterpiece. There's like 25 different option choices when you start the game, and I'm playing with like 10 of the harder ones and 5 of the easier making ones, and I'm still losing about halfway through. Never gotten through the first base attack mission. They've added so much stuff to the tech tree, like teaching your base security guys to wear armor and laser weapons and such. It's like amazing. Last time I had most of my base security in the first armor and some laser weapons to my primary, but all of my primary wasn't there.
Our scientific
Second and first armors. The first attack came pretty fucking early. Sorry for cursing. It came right after I captured my first alien. So now that I know that might be a trigger for the base attack, I'm not capturing my aliens until I'm well into the tech tree. Each time I'm learning something that improves my gameplay very much by the middle of the game, I can no longer implement it at maximum. So every time I start a new game, I actually have an idea of what's going to be more efficient. And I'm now using the self-made modding rule that when half of the countries have full defense available after getting the requests by XCOM filled, it slowly raises the defense against the aliens or the crisis or whatever on them. And when half of the countries are that of the countries that still support you, you need to enable one of the two mod choices of reducing the contribution the countries give you, and when it's at 75%, you need to implement the second one. Then you are good. Otherwise, you can start with both of the easier options in those, which is that country support for you doesn't decrease with time or panic. Once half of the campaign is done in terms of getting Earth ready for the invasion on defense on its own, then half of them will either panic or give up with time. You may choose the one you prefer. And it is July 28th, and that's when the renewable capacity that we have of the renewable capacity that is available, which is much more than that, is enough to fulfill one planet worth of production. Of how much of the available carbon production to the atmosphere the plants can actually consume and stuff like that on average. So it's not that we use 3 planets, which would be April. It's that we use about 2, which is late July. So it's not as far off as we thought it might be. Still pretty far.
Our scientific set.
I am well within Kyoto demands, which is half of what you did by 10 years of implementation. Started in 2020 and the production was 4, and I'm currently at 1.4. With the population actually expanding, the emissions per inhabitant has gone down quicker. We are at 6th best in the world. We're about to overtake Burundi, having recently overtaken Malawi. The closest CO2 producing what can be considered first world country is... You consider Kenya first world? I mean, they had Obama. They're at 150 of worst countries. So lower or higher number is better. We're at 170. I'm thinking Kenya needs to be added as a bar of what it means to be a Western country having had Obama. I'm thinking that leaves about 25 countries that are still worse off, some of them way worse off. I'm very content with the population numbers. Sorry about the very frequent autosaves. Has to be done because game is very prone to corrupting saves. So there's 1 billion autosaves. The crash log for this game is 1.4 gigabytes. To know what these guys want in their freaking crash log. But it's 1.4 gigabytes. You can literally fit a space program in there. Usually it's around 10 megabytes. It's byte, kilobyte, megabyte, gigabyte, terabyte. Yeah. Then there's a bunch more, but they're so infrequent that I haven't bothered to learn them. Just know there's like more there. billion. Giga. Yeah, giga. Trillion, tera. Million, mega. Mega. 1,000 kilo. There are some words. So trade balance from farming is finally done because organic travel revolution is done and the undernourished population number is not decreasing anymore. So it's all up to the taxation. I'm gonna make a bunch of reforms.
We are in a dead end.
Our scientific
The bill has been voted on.
our scientific.
I have a small favor to ask.
I have just
We will consider the one level 4 tank to be the command vehicle. Looking at this distribution means we need tank 2s to be equal, but we might as well get tank 3s but not tank 4s. Why not? Well, that's a shame. then I will buy from somebody else. Let's then try Russia, actually. In the end, they won the Battle of Kursk. If America is unwilling. What do you want for one of your most modern tanks? Fitted to be a command vehicle, it will also need to have normal tank-like weaponry. Rejected. Does not wish to sell the models. They don't like me enough, therefore let's see if we can get these acceptably good quality lower levels in the black market. Then let's take 10 level 2s on the black market, even though it is a little bit expensive. Fits with our command pyramid. We might as well get missile launchers level 2, but they're out of stock. Let's get one symbolic missile launcher level 3. There we go. That is enough for the military. We still don't have highways connecting all of our cities. It's very unfortunate. We'll need to build possibly from the capital all the way to the northern tip and from this little city all the way to the coastline. I think we'll build a port here and oil port in the north here. This place already has an international airport. And unless they specifically complain that airport quality and quantity isn't sufficient, I won't build another. Then I'll possibly build a very high quality here because you cannot disband these. If you could you can't upgrade this one to an intense one. I'd build probably one here, or even here, or even in the south. If I build a port here, I might as well build the international in the south, or even in the north tip. North tip might be better because it's closer to international airlines. It's very expensive though. But for now, all my effort is going to go into fixing these houses. It's gonna take a long time, but we're getting there. As long as our housing situation is 80 times worse than the African Union average, I'm not surprised. India 3.
Our network has
That's so little that it falls within the 45 to 40 error margins are not yet. And I'm probably gonna need to build 1 million houses, or according to my model, about a 900,000 at the current. Why can't you dismantle airports? It's very peculiar. And where is the resource map?
Our scientific se- Our scientific
The bill has been voted. The bill has been voted. The bill has been voted.
The mission was completed yesterday evening, giving rise to a festive atmosphere in the control room. It must be said that the scientific team had every reason to be overjoyed at the complete success of their space program, which seemed inconceivable in the beginning.
Yeah. You didn't kind of tell me what they accomplished because that wasn't my program. I have two programs. One of them named 1, which is already concluded, and one of them named 2, which is yet to be concluded. Azerbaijan made the highest offer. Estimated risk of 25%. Still pretty high. I'd like to get it to 10%.
Our site
We're not gonna get it to 0. This isn't crossing the Atlantic on a fighter jet. This is Columbus. Two weeks living on the space station. Next is orbit of closest planet. If it doesn't allow Moon, we'll go with Venus. Our mission to is to test if it's possible to terraform Venus to Earth by sealing its atmosphere with algae. We'll see if such a hypothesis is true. We'll see how it would be done. We will probably launch a very rudimentary probe with some kind of atmospheric scanning tool and do the results and go like, because you gotta do this yourself. That's science. We'll look at what others see. They see in their atmosphere and look at the dark spots and make a sensor for a few of them and then a general sensor and go like, that'll be the third. We concluded that building a space station is ludicrously expensive. We're using other people's launch sites, so we'd like to get this to 500,000, then we'll talk about building something else. A few days until the debt estimate comes in. BB, we'd like to get triple B or even a low A. We'd like that. We're actually getting very low interest rate loans on our constructions and a negligible effect in those in public debt, which is very surprising. We're expecting it to make a huge information thing. Astronaut. That's very curious. I will cherish this information. Thank you. I am Maradona. I will try this in a pinch. You can put as my memorial quote. I'd rather be doing something else, like watching some rated TV show, but I'll try this in a pinch. I will rule this particular sector of government. So as you can see, we are starting to reduce the value-added tax. We are also adjusting other taxes to be what we think they ought to be. If we assume 1% poor people's income tax is same as 0.01% transaction tax, then we might want to make transaction tax a little bit higher, the Tobin tax, because it's mostly designed around corporations which make a business AI which sells and buys the same commodity in the same tax-free area like 1,000 times a second to create a certain kind of harmonic vibration in the market, and it is designed basically to reduce that. So it is not targeted at a group of people that we'd consider worth helping, but rather a annoying phenomena, meaning that it might actually be higher. Then we can take its number and look at the number we're doing in
medium income taxation and see if they correspond in that would we want our average population to be asked more or the same or less than the harmonic vibration inducers? And in my opinion, less. But there is then room to expand the quietness we bring to the market. Please make decisions when you buy and sell to at least make a effort to hold the actual stock instead of simply just selling it 5 seconds later. You can, but when an AI is programmed to do that through 1,000 market goods at 1,000 times a second, what it looks like to the power grid, a seizure. It's a heart attack or a seizure when it's doing this. When it's not doing like. So it's at 0.01, which is the same as the poor people's income tax in this model. Very much cash surplus, thank you. Yes, my salary is very low and I'm noticing it myself. We need to publish this finding of being able to produce astronauts and how to do them. This might, as it's a domestic technology now, actually increase the chances of this succeeding. No, it's still at 25%. Is there a limit on how many partners we can have? Let's talk about this when total contribution of other countries is like 3% of total if we want to increase our budget. Let's talk about it at that point. So how much is the surplus? It is 1.9 actually. Let's buy back China's. See if we actually managed to buy back the entirety of China's debt. There we did. And let's buy back what we can of India. Yeah, we still need to buy back at least India. We're still at the double B's. We'll get a pretty expensive item fairly soon when we need to build the wind turbine. It's the natural choice because it's the lowest of the total grid of all the renewables. Once we are able to build the smallest nuclear power plant, it is 21 terawatts, so we'll need around 15 terawatts production of all others before we'll start building that one. Electricity consumption keeps increasing, but CO2 production is going down. We're actually seeing a slowdown in how much CO2 emissions are going down. We're about to overtake Liberia. I believe we were about to overtake Rwanda, but it actually overtook Liberia. So we're about to overtake Liberia. And in per habitant, we're about to overtake Burundi. See what the COVID situation is like. Oh, worldwide epidemic excluded. It's very nice. Very nice. I like this number. We're not going to go much above because we still need our non-renewables. We do like this number, but there is a limit. 95% is pretty good. That is considering that biomass is non-renewable, even though in your model some form of biomass are renewable. And I do not consider nuclear renewable, even though you consider it. So at some point we're going to drop hugely in renewable, but not much. Don't consider it renewable because the main source of how it generates its power is technically dug from the ground. I mean, you can say that you'll get uranium from purely recycling, but I kinda don't, under the current model, believe you. There's not enough laboratories in the world throwing away nuclear waste for you to get your civilian nuclear power plant by purely reduction. If people start truly dismantling nuclear weapons at a large rate, then I believe it. One reason why we should keep nuclear civilian power in large usage is that it increases the price of uranium, making it more profitable to disband than build nuclear weapons, in my opinion. If something is cheap, you'll make a weapon out of it. If it's like gold, it'll be like, a show of piece. I'm thinking about the number of commandos that I have. In my opinion, 750 is very little, but looking at this, it's actually pretty high. I mean, we're at Mexico and Russia in terms of commando numbers, and we're, Madagascar. We haven't received our imports of weapons yet. We noticed that we haven't been increasing our military spending while our GDP per capita has been growing sharply, so we imported some weapons. I believe 1 missile launcher which has arrived and 10 tanks which haven't arrived. Sometime previously we bought more missiles. We are at 2.15% of total GDP to defense, and we were at 3%, and we are at the level of Finland. We are below African and world average by far. So it might be wise, considering that we do have the budget, to at least somewhat increase the numbers in the military. I would like to be perhaps top 50 in the military rankings, but I would also like to be, in terms of percentage of world economy, as my own, at least 0.1%, preferably 1%. So keep that in mind. We are at 0.03. Our economy is not growing as fast as the world economy. And trade balance with the organic reformation now being done is actually, it did increase throughout the reformation, but it is still worse. It sharply dropped when we did the initial tax increases and budget reforms, which caused the domestic spending to increase so much that industry, even though it was growing sharply, couldn't actually keep up. Then, due to the farming upgrade, they were upgrading the domestic, the trade balance, because they were not importing as many fertilizers and stuff like that, and instead relying on local methods. It was improving the trade balance, but we reached 100% organic, and at the same time, we no longer saw a decrease in the number of malnourished people. So that has been completed. So the next step is, I don't know what, but I would say tax reform. We might also, as a kind of symbol, build a prison. We have seen a sharp decrease in the prison population due to our reforms. It's a lot easier not being a prisoner if you're an ex-prisoner, if there's a very low rate of unemployment. you'll literally be wanted even though you're an ex-con in terms of jobs. But building a couple of very new, very modern prisons that are like hospitals for crime are perhaps to be considered, just because might influence the crime rate. And we need to fairly quickly, possibly even now, now, increase the medical contributions, because some of these causes of death are actually increasing too much. You can see that stroke numbers are getting wildly out of hand. Wildly out of hand. We're doing good work in things like neonatal, but those are still getting out of hand. As you can see, housing construction is a lot slower than repair. So we might actually want to do repairing housing until there's 500,000 unhealthy houses, 500,000 healthy houses, and the unhealthy housing percentage is way below 50%. Then we might consider the housing situation solved. The debt rating is going pretty well. We'll soon pay India's. There are very high debts from Germany, but they have a very low interest rate, so that is acceptable. That is acceptable. Inflation took a slight hit with interest rate increase. So comparing that growth actually like ascended with that, we might actually want to raise the interest rate again, but we'll see what, because we don't want to push this too far, but we do want to do better against the dollar than we're currently doing, because we're supposed to be increasing the value of our money, so we might as well do this. This has bugged out. $8.5 is pretty high, so we'll probably keep it there even if we don't do well against the dollar. Average monthly is 1.2 million, while and is this yearly or monthly? Nice. I think this is monthly, because when I put this through the translator, it came out as roughly what I'm getting in Social Security, so this might be monthly. So after India's is fully paid, I'm doing a reform on wages, which means I'll also do this.
Here is our growth forecast.
Yeah, that's definitely flattening out.
Our site.
Yeah, with the time it takes to repair or build, I'm just gonna repair all the houses. It went down without building, so, you know, seems like it's okay when just mentioning it. So even with those minor financial contributions, with the contribution of their expertise, we see a reduction in the risk associated with it. We're also seeing a rapid increase in the well technology levels with all of these texts being published. We're seeing a rapid increase in that. It's also affecting my GDP and things like my economy pretty well. One of my largest production items is actually fuel cells, if I recall correctly. Fuel cells. A few years after they were introduced into my economy. Just gonna keep repairing the houses, that's what I'm gonna do. As each one has a 0.01 increase in the deficit. So it's slow. This should be possibly 4%. I know those income and expenditure numbers are nowhere near balanced, but I'll still allow 1 point drop in value added tax. Then I'll see if there's anything else I want to do. No.
The bill has been voted on. The bill has been voted on.
Ow. No less than 500,000 inhabited houses and no more than 50% unhealthy housing. Then I will stop constructing housing. Took a little bit of effort to build the additions to the internet and highway. I'm gonna go at some point in the semi-near future to go pay my debts that I incurred in the past 2 weeks. And so that's gonna take a while. Still way too smashed in the morning to come out anywhere. As you can see, population growth is increasing. So only thing I can think for that is with the fertility rate remaining steady, is child mortality decreasing.
Our scientific
So ask Ukraine for technology. I mean, considering that we have all the contraceptive rights, that number is very good. It's very good. Considering we have all of those rights. Now I'm gonna have to wait a little while to increase the deficit spending because that surplus number is gonna come in at the end of the year and it's gonna look like a deficit again. Pope Rural. I definitely want to be known as Pope Rural. That'd be nice, man. Feels very good to be almost debt free. Some collection agencies are still sending me notices, but the state says I'm debt free. It's a waste of paper on both ends. Once we get about 3 trillion in the bank with all the debts we want to pay having been paid off, we'll look at expanding the highways in the south. towards the coastline, then we'll look at the very northern part, but that's gonna be insanely expensive. I wish you could disband airports.
Our scientific cell infiltrated.
Iso tääkosali. Oh, that's nice. 22% risk of failure. And they finance 2% from other partners. We still have a lot of time left. They're minuscule donations, but their expertise is taking down the risk of failure. Unemployment is pretty high. How much is the next level? It's a very good number. State budget is actually decreasing. We will increase healthcare spending or decrease taxes after Switzerland has been paid. Then we will look at if we even need to pay these two remaining over 10%, but probably will. Canada and Germany are at below 10%, and I doubt that I'm going to pay them off. But I do need to pay this 14% from India. That much I know that I'm gonna do next round. I'm sad that even with the nice, even with the oil production sites, we're not producing any oil. I don't think that's right. I don't ask us to produce a lot of oil, but with one production site costing like 5 billion dedicated entirely to oil production domestically, you should have something. I mean, something. We're starting to have all the tech we need for this mission. Just taking down a risk of failure. Argentina with 51. 21% risk of failure. Let's continue gathering funding. So it takes a long time, but it's actually a lot more interesting than doing the full bulk funding from some excess somewhere. These two need to be connected by a highway. If I have over 1 trillion after paying off India, I will connect these two with a highway. If I have under, I will pay the least expensive mobile connection. It turns out that increasing by 1% is more costly towards the end of the scale than it is towards the beginning, just as it should be. So that is actually good. So I will get the entire coverage to 100, but it won't be like total population. Some will have overlapping services, but total number of coverage will be 100. Then we will see. I won't get them all to 100. I'm not gonna get all of these to 100. Like, for example, the number of buildings, we only have one university, or the number of research centers. Primary school attendance rate is pretty good, and illiteracy is going down nicely. Analphabetism. We're still pretty high on the list, though. We're not even better than some dark parts of Africa. But our school classroom size is actually pretty good. We're at Taiwan level. Taiwan and Albania both are pretty good Western nations. It's not Zimbabwe and Niger. Trade balance is taking a bit of a hit from these specific tax increases. I think these look about right. Then this needs to be about 20 to 35. I'm thinking if I get over 1 trillion, that I'll either decrease that by 1 or increase the healthcare expenditure by 1. The increase in stroke fatalities is the thing that concerns me. And if we get like stroke fatalities to go down while neonatal also goes down, I'll be pretty content. For Vladimir Putin, Mr. Putin Pop. How is SpongeBob in the dry part?
Let's get this to no more than 15%. I think we have all the technologies. Some of these are from Russia, but I think we now have all of them domestically. It's a pretty wide collection of people wanting to get a Madagascarese man to spend 2 weeks on the ISS. It's actually a pretty wide collection. It's nowhere near funding the whole project, but it is a wide collection. We're still funding 95% of it. We're starting to reach what we can actually do with that. Sad that this hasn't switched into the negative, even though it's supposed to. This is apparently almost as low as we can take it. Now we're starting to reach a real impasse. We're still not in the lowest page in both. Probably worth doing some improvement over. And we have a fair bit of these. Total production is almost 0.1. We'd need a lot more of these to get anywhere near good levels. So Kyoto Part 1 is done. We have managed to reduce 50% in 10 years after signing on board. Now we will look at other indicators. Very sad that we haven't started reforestation despite the fact that we no longer deforest. I'm looking at having a consistent green energy surplus. That's what I'm looking at next. Then if somebody actually buys energy from us, they know that it will be consistently green. We have around 10% in non-green technologies. 6.8 plus 3.4, 10.2. I think soon gonna be lower when we build a wind park, but not yet. We still have enough surplus, way more than we need.
The preparation.
Yes, I will attend Christmas. Homeless rate is going down, but it's gonna peak again in December when this game automatically makes everybody that is from January to December turning 18 turn 18 at start of December. So there's a spike in most of these numbers around January when the situation suddenly gets weirder. And that's because there's this huge spike in the population pyramid. This is about the right level because it's the same amount of young people as there are about 45 to 55. This low point here was the immediate panic reaction to this massive spike. And it was at about the level of 70, 75-year-olds. That's how many we got births. Now it's, after doing a little bit of back and forth like a heartbeat, it's at roughly the same amount of people who are young as there are people who are 45, 55. So it's mostly middle age, and every time one generation of this huge spikes gets into the world job market, things go a little weird. I'm gonna have to build a new lab pretty soon.
we are approaching African Union average in our happiness. Population is still increasing. Population density is going up slowly. We're still pretty suburban and not urban. Population growth is increasing even with a very liberal contraception policy. Everybody under contraception. Oh, is that liberal? I don't even know anymore. It's weird, but I kind of see the purpose of why everybody's on contraceptives in the developed world according to this model. Just means that you don't need to knock the person up who, knocks you up. The state does it for you, which is also why crime rate is so low. Prison population is slowly declining, but not very much. The decline in the prison population is nice. The decline in the prison population is mostly causing the slight increase in the unemployment along with the population increase thing. I think I might want to build at least one modern show-off prison, like the showcase of what they should be like. Failure because all these grandiose projects always are, but we'll get it to work eventually. Unhealthy housing finally below 80%. Now it's 79.6. Goes down about 4% a year. 60,000. If I get over $1 trillion after I've paid the debts, then I connect Toliari to Fiantarosa. Then we will see. Once electricity surplus is 0.8, then I'll build the offshore wind. Then we need to build the other power generation models quite a bit to catch up with the offshore wind. I'll build probably one biomass when biomass and fossil together are no more than 5%. You want to bet that there's a new partner?
The household purses remain.
Oh, no new partner indeed. 21%. You were right, Mr. Minister. Thank you. 5. Now estimated risk 11%. Still pretty high. Let's wait a while and see if with the increased budget and lower risk somebody actually shows up. A little bit more in the lowering of the risk.
Our scientific self. Our scientific cell infiltrated. Our scientific.
Here are the GDP. Academics.
Our scientific se-
On the next debt cycle, I'm gonna probably pay back Switzerland most of the debt or all of the debt. Public debt is going along nicely. We're about to reach triple B. We're currently at B. That or be admitted into one of these other credit indexes. You can't even arrange a meeting with this guy. So I assume they do it automatically once you reach a certain
our
size.
scientific
So do I build from? I'll build from the center. It's much more logical looking.
Here is our growth. Purchasing power is on the rise.
our scientific cell Our network has been You are
I don't know why these don't show up. I bought 10 of these. Submarine rank 1 is probably too expensive. Yeah, it's too expensive. How about a frigate Mark 2? Then I'll look at Mark 1. Available. Way too expensive. 9 arrested in Brazil, that's pretty high. Means when they arrest someone, they bring a lot of people in at the same time. There's only one solution to this. Once I go like in 15 minutes or so, I'll be most likely back today. I'm feeling a drive to play this thing.
Our network.
We are waiting. The rioters. The rioters have taken. Rioters.
Our scientific cell.
The rebels have.
I might record a bit of my XCOM gameplay. It's a very interesting one. I have a custom rule where you can start with the countries getting exhausted and reducing their funding over time or panic off. But when you reach half of your planet with the high defense attribute, which you will, because I want to give the items to the other countries to defend themselves with, you need to enable one, and when it's at 75% both. Otherwise, it's too hard. I like the settings I have of about the 30, 35, maybe even 40 settings. I have 25 on, and about 15 to 20 of them make the game harder, and about 5 to 10 make the game easier. Some things in the game are so difficult that I'd rather keep it easy. There's things like somebody with a battle rifle having a 30% chance to hit somebody like 10 hexes away. It's like ridiculous considering the map is pretty huge. If you fire a burst, as in a couple of rounds in accurate mode towards a target, you'd be well expected if you're in a good firing position to hit somebody standing upright at least 100 meters away. If you take like pop, 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 you'd be expected to hit it at least once. There's also a couple of other things that I'd like to change, meaning that you're more likely to make glancing blows than no blows at all, so that you kind of hit the target, but not pretty well. I'm very satisfied with the unsanitary housing thing. Yeah, we are actually gonna increase the healthcare budget, but we can't do it yet, as you know. That's first.
Our network has been.
I know, I'm sorry. This is good. Where are we now in terms of doctors? We are pretty close enough to the top countries. And where are we in classroom size? Pretty good. We're at Chile. Chile is a pretty well-educated country. Trinidad and Tobago. Okay, we're good enough. We're in the better parts of the Caribbean and South America, so that's good enough for us. We're finally also getting a steady increase in the number of highly educated people. We're almost at world average. Illiteracy rate is doing a fine improvement. That's going to increase the value of our economy radically. See what the revolt is like. Okay, you're gonna go there. I don't agree with that, Minister. Sorry.
Our scientific cell. We have subdued the rebel. Good morning. Sure. I'd like. I have just counted.
A couple of more partners. We increased the budget, delayed the launch to the end of next year, and did a couple of other things. So we're looking at if somebody minor is now interested. It's a little bit safer, so it's not a matter of life and death. But if you want to get involved, I think I'm gonna go pay my debts in flesh after Switzerland gets theirs. The next countries after that is Japan. If we think of Japan as romantic, touchy, feely, goody heart part in this, then they may not be as important as hardcore finances, which I do believe might be more important than debts in the flesh. Considering this little tool here is how I make my actual money. If I get some amount remaining at all after I pay Switzerland, I will, or after this month's contribution, which will go directly to Switzerland, I will probably increase healthcare spending because that stroke fatality increase really worries me. It really worries me. We need to curb that immediately. Doing fine, otherwise mortality rate is going down, but still. You are all indeed getting a salary increase to make you competitive with the inflation increasing and other things increasing, but you won't get it yet. I'm actually going to do something. I'm gonna do it now, considering that I got a good month remaining before I get the outcome of the thingamajiggy. I'm gonna do what probably in our case amounts to the last round of liberalizations. Probably amounts to the last round. Then we'll do a round of looking at each law individually and considering if we need to harden them. We are approaching, but we are not yet at the most liberal end that I can conceive. The next generation will have a more liberal end, and so on and so forth, till infinitum. I like the XCOM Long War mod. It is exactly like XCOM should have been initially. It is a masterpiece. There are very few things in the game I would change for the Long War thing. One of the things I would change is make the enemy sectoids and others in the late game be able to throw grenades. That is what I missed from the original. You could also add the standing and kneeling postures, but they don't seem to add much. Lying down and kneeling postures, but they don't seem to add much to this game. So keep an eye out for strokes. And in this country, we will continue to celebrate unrestrained individualism. Common community will be taken care of by the common community. I'm thinking we should build a metro line in the second largest city. I'm thinking. And I would like to get the total internet coverage to 75%. Now, there are a lot of reforms here that I will put forth, but I cannot reset to recommend accepting them, but I will put them to the public vote. I'm sure most of these will fail because we are at a point where we have gone very far in terms of our liberalization reforms. This I would still put to limited and monitored, but it is for the conservatism wave. Private funding is okay, but I need to increase the Prime Minister's wage for that. 4 years. Let's try 3. Referendum passes. Proportional is better. Parliament vote passes. Unlimited. 2 turns. Probably passes. Yeah, passes. Let's do one more step of national youth. It's a little controversial, but let's put it at 50-50. And if we have workers, we don't have workers. These are all already liberal as they can be. These are not gonna pass. That was closer than I expected. That was also a little bit closer than I expected. And there's no laws here. Nobody wanting to join with a 5% risk ratio. It's not much, but it's showing up. See where we are at in a year. And this scientific cooperation system goes through this, and it's ludicrously complex, and you have to do it like for every tech instead of just general treaties, and so I'm just doing the spine, forgive me. These are all fully funded. Yes, we will get tension with these. This is also pretty complex, and so not for me. Let's increase these by 5 days off for children. Passes. This isn't actually a maximum school age. This is minimum employment age. Passes. This isn't gonna pass. Private education for everyone, no. And take this to 50. Yeah, less what you'd call surveillance. Let's take this to 155. Yeah, same raises in the school thing. Passes. Maximum age for driver's license. Finally doing this age reform. Doesn't pass. Finally doing this age reform because the child mortality and contraceptive things is going well.
You know me.
I'm not one for useless grub talk.
Despite all
Siinä palaa, Yes, actually. Course per capita is pretty low. Okay, I think we can do one. It's probably gonna be overruled. Yeah, it's overruled. And it is allowed, but nobody actually has any of them. These, I think, are at a good point. They are at the most, let's say, expensive and legal and regulated. Everybody on contraceptives and abortion on demand. These are marriage, full no birth control policy because our birth rate isn't too high, and zero family subsidies, but we are gonna increase the social subsidies some more. These are all good. We're gonna increase these once the money comes in. I recall them being good. COVID legislations are all gone. %. Local laws. Oh, that is very interesting. This I truly, truly hate, but I will ask your opinion. Very narrow margin. And these are all the best. Retirement age I could actually take down by one. Overruled. Army is fine. Immigration, I think, is fine because we don't have any immigrant groups in the country at all. We might as well give all the ones that are here right to vote because nobody's here. And all these others are good. We'll look that over once we get the change in immigration numbers. Yeah, the prison reform didn't cause a good outcome. That's why we only did it with a very, very small number. And weapons to license system overruled. I'm gonna do sentences less than 3 months. Not gonna propose a death penalty, and independence for judges is already there. I did the cyber awareness thing, and I don't think there is anything else we need to do. Full. Let's go surveillance cameras to 4,500. Probably gonna be overruled. Well, loud. That's because we have a high unemployment to go to. I'm actually gonna overrule you on this one. Because you don't see me doing this at the same time. Let's go with lighter policing and more actual police officers because we have a high unemployment, so we might as well. Same with surveillance cameras and other things like that. Now some of these laws might be overruled because my support is going down. These are all good. I wonder if those guys consider renewable running taxis as public transport, because I would. This is already authorized, and I think there isn't anything else in these groups except taxation. These are all good. And tax amnesty for small offenses because we are hiring more police officers.
Good morning!
We need a lower or rather we are already lowering the unemployment. Okay.
Sure.
Thinking of just accepting all the trade proposals as long as they're better than what I'm currently getting on average. Because none of these guys are going for my different trades.
The bill has been.
Okay, so we are approaching liberal end of the scale with elections every 5 minutes and such. Yes, CO2 is at its lowest point. Can't go any lower. Probably might go down if there was no population growth. January, February, March. Okay. Across March, we're gonna get the last news on our laws and reforms. That seems like we might be at the lowest point. There's still a few we could try, but you're gonna see that like 80% of these laws are gonna be overturned by Parliament or the public vote. Then it makes more sense to gently aim for the other end of the scale. And I'm gonna start accepting all trades that are better than what I'm getting at market average, and then occasionally emptying the trade list of all the trades that are very bad. Might as well actually do so now. This one is the only bad one. Yeah. Now you're gonna see
The bill has been.
speed limits in cities
The bill has
passed.
been.
Speed check radars passed.
The referendum passed.
Oh, these are actually all going through still. Surprised. Means we might have to do one more cycle of reforms. Starting to be spry enough to go out in the street. I don't want to meet anybody if I'm really wasted, especially for financial matters, because it looks very sketchy. So there is a degree of waiting to sober up, even though paying debts is of utmost importance. I'm very surprised that this thing actually allowed us to get to double B.
The referendum failed. What a pity.
Yeah, arms sales was not gonna pass. Alcohol consumption passed, which was a surprise. Freedom of teachers not gonna pass. So we might see with the higher speeds and alcohol consumption laws on the road,
The bill has been.
of us seeing the cap of the lowering of the
The
fatality
referendum
thing.
failed.
Not gonna pass, not
The
gonna
referendum.
pass. Okay, passive it is, but active I won't give you. Because of exactly that fear.
You have shown.
You can, as a doctor, if the patient specifically
The
requests,
bill has been.
be allowed to discontinue life-altering, life-saving medication, but actively, as in actually plugging somebody into a morphine drip and killing them, no matter the circumstances, you aren't allowed to do. But seizing healthcare for somebody who specifically requests it, fine, I'll allow it. It is also another point.
The referendum failed.
Voting rights for foreigners are not going to go.
The bill has been voted on.
Alcohol limit didn't go through, but I think driving
The bill has been voted on.
number of surveillance cameras went through.
Whether it's
Minimum age for all driver's licenses didn't go through. And neither did the alcohol limit. So only thing that went through was the speed limit and lowering of the number of security cameras. But we also rather sizably increased the numbers in the police force. Now it's at 40,000 instead of 37,500. It has an increase in crime rate. Drug addiction and killed on road accidents seems to be roughly the same, but it hasn't provided next month's data. We are about roughly close to the ending point for this one, but I do still feel like a pretty strong urge to continue.
as of today.
Tax amnesty increases unemployment, which at the moment might be a good thing. Finally starting to see the that's actually the healthcare and other workers being hired. Yeah. Let's see how many active service personnel we actually have in comparison to others. I think Australia and Canada is too much, but we could catch up to Uganda. So let's call it 4 divisions of infantry, 50,000 manpower total. It's a pretty expensive reform. Because we have done all that we can with solving this situation by finance, we will actually look at the government service sectors that could potentially use more workers and hire some more there. And this guy gets published. We're doing pretty fine.
The bill has been voted on.
Schools got more holidays.
Our network has been.
Your politics are.
Because I'm still getting busted due to my spy service wings being too large, I will actually decrease the size of some of these. Let's put it at this speed and zoom in because it's much more reactive. Magic number 42 and 600, 420 and 69 called, and they want new numbers. The Not Funny Numbers Alliance called. It's actually pretty good. Not the joke, the number 42 got in being equal there. Which of these countries is somebody we'd call developed? Turkey is definitely developed. You cannot spy on undeveloped nations. It's good. I think we're gonna get way over $1 trillion in our reserve. It should be way more than needed. See how much of Switzerland's debt we're able to pay.
The bill has been voted on, and the law.
We still got actually quite a lot of those liberalization reforms to go through. 6% chance of failure. Definitely need to find at least one more nation willing to fund it with us. Maybe doing the trades with the acceptance, if it's better than our average currently, will allow more partners because people will become interested in our things because we're friendly to them. Maybe. By the way, time to repair houses again.
The bill has been voted on.
Nice. That was a surprise. There you go. Electricity surplus is looking at pretty good. We are now officially 1 year below the lowest point of other countries in voting age. In various things like alcohol, driving, etc., we are well above the lowest point. For some reason, you people give them other rights besides voting, and we're doing with voting at the same time. Antiviral treatment for COVID, that's good, though the COVID pandemic is already over, but you never know if it comes back. Unemployment rate is going down pretty well. GDP per capita isn't increasing very fast because the jobs that people are getting are low paid long term government jobs instead of high paying temp jobs. Temp jobs that are high paying are fairly comparable to running a corporation. I prefer my system of very low corporate taxes because getting corporates to be very low taxed if the money is going back into improving or running the corporation, but very high taxes if it's taken out of the corporation for your private income is very, very good. It creates Musk-style trillionaires that explore space. We have a 5% chance of failure in our mission from Baikonur. We're going to spend 2 weeks living on the ISS. Then we're going to make space program number 3, which is a mission to either Luna if it's possible, if not, then Venus if it's not possible, then Mars. Luna's going to be just outside the Earth radiation belt test and other stuff like that. It's not going to be non-manned. And Venus is going to be exploration on if algae farming in the Venusian atmosphere could theoretically terraform it to Earth like levels. That's our mission to Venus. Mission to orbit was to test if it's possible to develop a satellite that is used to catch decommissioned satellites and hold them somewhere. We hold them to a high orbit so they're out of way of the other traffic and don't cause a Kessler syndrome. And then if you actually build a space station and you need stuff in orbit, we have it for you. You just need to basically weld it together because it's made from 1,000 different countries and contributors. and we pay you or you pay us depending on how the satellite is decommissioned. Then we have a large amount of satellites in orbit in a single easily manageable location, and then if you like discover space welding or something, you can build a huge add-on to the ISS very cheaply. And I mean huge. You do need some components from Earth, but nowhere near as many as you might think. If you have things like solar panels and sealed containers that you have access tubing to and stuff like that, that's immensely important, which is why like 4 or 5th of our missions is going to be an expansion or a space station. I'd prefer an expansion into the ISS, but it depends on what this game allows. It could also be just like an own space station. It's still pretty expensive though. Okay, we had a huge surplus. Homeland Minister resigned. Probably in protest of our decision to hold off on paying physical debts until we've done this thing. Switzerland, do we pay back the entire debt? What does it say? Almost 172 billion remaining. Almost. The debt is looking pretty fine. Yeah, that's about 4% per year in houses getting repaired. We have around 250,000 houses that are repaired and 650,000 that are not repaired. I'm gonna save and quit after the weekly economic calculations. And this isn't enough surplus to start funding the healthcare sector in a way that would counter the stroke fatality increase. So you're gonna have to make do. This is very bad, but you're gonna have to make do. There we go. I'm probably gonna record the XCOM gameplay or not, I don't know yet. Might be fun just to play, but we'll see. That was a very long episode. It looks like we'll be able to do this. With the nearly 2 trillion surplus every 3 months, if we're observing in terms of global economy, then yeah, paying the debt seems pretty doable. We'll pretty soon be able to pay off all the debts that are above 10%. Then if our interest rate is like 8% and the debt is at 8.5, we might put our interest rate at 9 and just not pay the debt. We'll see. Thank you for tuning in. This was a very enjoyable episode. We might get one more wave of liberalizations. We'll see. Thank you for watching.